Hey guys, welcome back to Explainer X. Today, I am going to recap a 2013 drama movie, named Nymphomaniac, Volume 1. So, let's begin. The story begins with a man out on a walk. He heads home after purchasing bait from a tackle shop. He comes across an unconscious middle-aged woman on the ground, horribly beaten and bloodied. He wakes her awake and tells her he's going to call an ambulance. She informs him that she does not require an ambulance and that if he calls for assistance, she will go. While drinking tea, he drives her to his residence. He offers to wash her things but asks him not to wash her coat. The man inquires as to what occurred, but the woman merely states that she is a nasty person. He tries to express his feelings to her, but she is hesitant. He observes a fly on a fishhook on the wall. He tells her about fly fishing and how, because the fly is light, it works as bait for the fish. She inquires about his fishing habits, but he declines. He recalls reading the fishing book The Complete Angler. The woman assures him that she will give him a long story. Chapter 1. The Complete Angler. The woman adds that she discovered her bait as a 2-year-old. When she was 7 years old, she and her friend would pour water on it and drag themselves across it for sexual pleasure. When her mother knocked on the bathroom door, they would come to a stop and clean up the water. She describes her father, a doctor, and how much she adored him. Climbing a rope becomes physically appealing to the woman. She explains how her sole sin is seeking more from the sunset, but the man cuts her off, questioning if children can be sinful. The mother corrects him and reminds him that he, not children in general, is immoral. He explains that he is not religious, to which she concurs. When the man asks why she would agree with the concept of sin if she is not religious, she explains that when she was 10 years old, her father took her on a walk and told her a story about how the ash tree made all the other trees in the forest jealous because it was so beautiful, but when it lost all of its leaves in winter, the other trees laughed at the ash tree's black buds and mocked it. The man explains that the fly on the wall is called a nymphom, which is the early stage of an insect. She tells us that as a young nymph she wanted to get rid of her virginity. She chose to lose her virginity to a boy who was 15 years old, as he had a working moped. She went to him and asked him to take her virginity. The boy tells her to completely undress and humps her 3 times before turning her around and humps her 5 times. She returns home, telling that those 2 humiliating digits 3 and 5 will never be forgotten. She promised she'd never bang again after experiencing so much pain. After a few years, though, she became promiscuous with her companion, wearing blouses with the words "fuck me now" inscribed on them. The woman addresses herself as Joe. She and I board a train without tickets and wager on having sex with the most men on the train before it arrives at its destination. A bag of chocolates will be awarded as the reward. Joe searches the compartments for men who might be interested in having sex. Joe joins a family and a lonely man in one compartment. As B recommended, she asks a lot of questions, and the lonely man offers to show her the lavatory where they intimate. The speaker said that they are researching the river, where most large fish seek refuge from predators. The B has 5 to Joe's 3, but they can't locate any more males prepared to have intercourse. The man adds that it happens in fishing when either none or all of the fish's feet feed at the same moment. He explains that a simple prey item, such as a fly, should be used. Joe employs this strategy and enters a compartment with 2 men, one of whom falls for her fabricated emotional story and they have sex in the laboratory, but she is uninterested. B is ahead in points, and they arrive at the first class, where the conductor catches them but lets them go with a warning. V recommends having intercourse with a man who pays for their tickets, but he declines. B has 10 points, whereas Joe has 6. B chooses to award 5 bonus points if she has sex with a first-class passenger. Joe decides to go after the man who paid for the sex tickets, but he refuses, stating that he needs to get home to his wife because she is ovulating and he needs to have sex with her. She explains that she had no regrets about pushing herself on the man and ended up winding the bet with B. He tells her it means the happy one, and she inquires whether he is happy. He claims to be and shares his hypothesis about how cutting the left hand first suggests the individual is more lighthearted, but the woman immediately dismisses him. Rugelach, a Jewish cake on a platter, catches her eye, and the cake fork tickles her interest. Joe believes pastries should not be eaten with a cake fork and tells how she knew someone named Jerome who did. Joe is given the nickname vacuum cleaner at first because she is well known for her sexual ability, but during a club meeting, he admits to having sex with the same guy 3 times and is chastised by Joe. Joe instructs B to tell Joe that she doesn't know everything about sex and that love is the hidden element, but Joe rushes away. Joe explains that she aspired to be a doctor like her father but failed medical school. She lands a job at a printing factory, where she is interviewed by Liz. Jerome is found to be the company's CEO. Joe returns to the path she used to walk with her father in the flashback. She becomes preoccupied with Jerome and finally quits having sex. She discovers Jerome's address and composes a letter explaining her sentiments, but it takes her a month to summon the confidence to deliver it. She finds Jerome's uncle back at his desk, and he asks for the letter, informing her that Jerome has married Liz and is currently traveling. Joe claims that she was fired from her job because she lacked experience. She tries to keep Ram in her thoughts when she masturbates on a train and finds details and other passengers that remind her of Jerome, but she acknowledges that she won't be able to do so after Jerome is gone. Joe intensifies her man-hunting. She compares her vagina to a supermarket door with an extremely sensitive sensor that opens and closes on its own. She meets several different males. Joe discovers a painting with the words Mrs. H, which leads to the next chapter. Mrs. H. Joe has many lovers and has trouble remembering who they are. She listens to her answering machine and takes notes, unable to keep track of the distinct connections and how to communicate with them. Joe uses a dice to evaluate her attitude, with a lower number indicating she is uninterested and a larger number indicating she is. She realizes this makes her entirely unpredictable, which drives the man insane. One day, a lover named H refuses to leave her flat so that Zay may prepare for the next lover to arrive after forcing him to leave. He does, but before the new girlfriend can return, he is at her door with his bag, saying that he abandoned his wife and children for her. Joe finds Mrs. H and her children following her and enters Joe's flat with a venomous Mrs. H. She leads them to the bedroom and shows them Joe's bed, informing them that this is where Joe was whoring about when her genuine boyfriend arrived. She starts shouting at them, then slaps her husband and snatches her children away. Seligman inquires as to how this experience influenced Joe's life, and she responds, not at all. She reveals that despite the fact that sex was her regular companion, she nevertheless felt alone at the age of 7. Joe is undergoing an anesthetic procedure. She is in the hospital corridor while the physicians prepare for the procedure, and she feels entirely alone in the universe. He describes Poe's death from delirium tremens, in which his rapid abstinence from alcohol following addiction resulted in delirious hallucinations and his suicide. Joe explains that she is an expert on delirium. A mature person, Joe goes to her sleeping father's hospital room. When he awakens, she informs him that her mother will not be arriving. He defends her by claiming she is afraid of hospitals. Joe dismisses her as a cowardly moron, but her father defends her. Joe asks if he's scared, and he responds no. Joe's father awakens from his sleep, yelling and sobbing. She tries to console him, but he remains silent. Joe takes a stroll in the same courtyard. She returns to the room, but her father suffers from another bout of delirium. While he is crying, the medics fight to restrain him and place him into a straitjacket. A doctor leads Joe out of the room. Joe wanders the hospital and has sex with an orderly worker downstairs. She afterwards falls asleep on a chair in her father's room. When she awakens, she discovers that her father has soiled himself. 2 nurses and a janitor clean up the debris while their father watches Joe with wild eyes in a straitjacket. Joe starts having intercourse with someone else in the hospital, but she bursts out crying. Joe's father dies, and she realizes she no longer has any sentiments. She appears to appreciate him stating this but does not respond. He takes her plate and walks away. When he returns, she begs him to play the tape recorder. He informs her it's Bach, the maestro of polyphony. It is all about discovering a heavenly process in art and architecture. Joe says that nymphomaniacs are thought to be hooked to sex, but she sees it as the sum of different sexual experiences, thus she only has one lover. Joe confines herself to 3 lovers in chapter The Little Organ School, one of which is F and drives an old red automobile. They all have specific appointments because she has sex with 7 or 8 men at once. She arrived an hour early and waited for him in his car for an hour. She would occasionally allow him to come in and have coffee while she finished with her previous partner. She liked how he could tell what she wanted during sex without her expressing anything. His most precious aim was her climax, and she granted him privileges that none of the others had, such as permitting him to give her a sponge bath. F was the foundational voice, monotonic, dependable, and ritualistic. This becomes Joe's interpretation of the first voice. We meet Kai, the only lover she wanted to see when he finally appears. Joe walks past the ash tree, which she associates with the movements of a caged animal during her most recent walk. Joe discovers snapshot fragments of Jerome scattered over the path. A hand suddenly reaches out to grip hers, and she sees Jerome in the present. Seligman disputes her story's coincidences. She reveals that Jerome was there because he had just gotten into an argument with his wife, who was enraged and tore up the image. Joe confirms in the present day that this was the third voice of the secret substance. A tune is played, and 3 screens show Joe's 3 lovers, F, G, and Joe, all having sex with Joe. Joe asks Jerome what's wrong after they had sex. She expresses her inability to feel anything and sobs. The screen goes black, and the movie ends here. So I hope you enjoy the video. So click any video of 3 them and enjoy next, and don't forget to subscribe our channel and hit the like button. Thank you for watching. See you soon.